Some guys get cold feet before the wedding. I got cold, hard evidence instead. My name is Derek Calloway, and 3 weeks before I was supposed to marry the woman of my dreams, I discovered she'd been treating our relationship like a business merger, one where she planned to be the sole beneficiary and I'd be the liquidated asset. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. It started on a Tuesday morning in October. Houston's humidity was finally breaking, and I was running late for my job at Morrison Engineering. Paige Hollister, my fiancée of 8 months, was still in bed when I realized I'd forgotten my laptop charger, the one plugged into her iPad on the kitchen counter. "Babe, I'm borrowing your charger," I called out, unplugging the device. That's when her screen lit up with a text notification. "Evan, can't wait to celebrate after you dump the engineer. My place, champagne, and that thing you do with your..." The message cut off, but I'd seen enough. My hands shook as I set down her iPad, staring at the preview text that had just shattered my world into 1,000 sharp pieces. I should have walked away, should have confronted her right then. Instead, I did what any rational person would do when their entire future crumbles before their morning coffee. I swiped to read more. What I found was worse than I could have imagined. Months of messages between Paige and Evan Rusk, some photographer she'd met through her lifestyle blog. The conversation history painted a picture that made my stomach turn. Paige: "Derek's so gullible. He actually thinks I love him." Evan: "How much longer do you have to pretend?" Paige: "Just until after the wedding. His insurance policy is worth $500K, plus he's got that inheritance from his grandmother. I've been moving money into my accounts gradually. He hasn't noticed." Evan: "You're brilliant. What about the prenup?" Paige: "What prenup? I convinced him we didn't need one because true love doesn't require legal protection." God, he's pathetic. I set the iPad down carefully, my engineering mind automatically cataloging the evidence. Screenshots. And I needed screenshots. But first, I needed to not throw up on Paige's expensive marble countertops. The woman I'd planned to spend my life with had been systematically robbing me while planning my emotional and financial destruction. Every "I love you" had been a lie. Every intimate moment had been an act. Every time she'd talked about our future together, she'd been calculating how to take everything I'd worked for and disappear with her photographer boyfriend. "Derek, you still here?" Paige's voice drifted from the bedroom, sweet and innocent. The same voice that had whispered those loving lies for over a year. "Yeah, just grabbing my charger," I called back, my voice surprisingly steady. I quickly screenshotted the conversation thread, my fingers moving with mechanical precision. "Paige, the wedding's costing him almost $80K. I made sure to pick the most expensive venue, flowers, everything. Might as well go out with a bang." Evan: "You're evil. I love it." Paige: "He works late every night to pay for it all, thinks he's building our dream wedding. Really, he's funding his own funeral." More screenshots. My phone's memory was filling up with evidence of my fiancé's betrayal, each message another nail in the coffin of our relationship. "I'm making breakfast," Paige announced, her footsteps heading toward the kitchen. "Want some eggs?" "No thanks," I managed, quickly closing her iPad and grabbing my charger. "Running late." She appeared in the doorway wearing one of my old college t-shirts, looking adorable and innocent. 3 months ago, this sight would have made me smile. Now it made me want to scream. "You okay? You look pale," she said, moving closer with that concerned expression she'd perfected. "Just tired? Big project timeline coming up." The lie came easily. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who'd gotten good at deception. She kissed my cheek, and I had to force myself not to flinch. Poor baby, working so hard for our future. Our future, right. "I'll see you tonight," I said, heading for the door before I said something I'd regret. "Love you," she called after me. "Love you too," I replied automatically, the words tasting like poison. I made it to my truck before the shaking started. Sitting in Paige's driveway, I stared at the screenshots on my phone, trying to process what I'd just learned. The woman I'd planned to marry was a sociopath. The wedding I'd been working overtime to pay for was a sham. The life I'd been building was built on lies. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Malik Chen, a lawyer who'd been my roommate in college. "Malik, bachelor party planning meeting tonight. Don't forget." Bachelor party. For a wedding that was never going to happen. For a marriage that had been doomed from the start. I texted back, "Can we meet earlier? Need to talk." Malik: "Everything okay?" Derek: "Define okay?" Malik: "Shit. My office, 6 p.m. I spent the rest of the day at work in a fog, mechanically reviewing structural plans while my personal life collapsed around me. My colleagues noticed. Tom Patterson, my project manager, asked 3 times if I was feeling all right. I blamed it on wedding stress, which wasn't entirely a lie. At lunch, I called my sister Catie. She was a former cop turned private investigator, and if anyone would know how to handle this situation, it would be her. Derek, this is a surprise. Shouldn't you be drowning in wedding planning right now? Catie, I need your help. Can we meet tonight after I see Malik? Her tone immediately shifted. What's wrong? Paige is cheating on me. Has been for months. And I think she's stealing from me. Silence. Then, that bitch. I knew something was off about her. Too perfect. Too sweet. What do you need? I need to know my options. Legal ones. Bring everything you have. We'll figure this out. The rest of the workday crawled by. Every time my phone buzzed with a text from Paige, asking about dinner plans, sharing some meaningless detail about her day, telling me she loved me, I felt sick. At 6 p.m. sharp, I was in Malik's office, a sleek space in downtown Houston with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Malik took one look at me and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. Talk, he said. I showed him the screenshots, watched his expression change from confusion to anger to cold professionalism. Jesus Christ, Derek. How long has this been going on? Based on the message timestamps, at least 6 months, maybe longer. Malik studied the evidence, his lawyer brain already working. This is bad, really bad. She's been committing fraud, possibly theft. The fact that she's planning to take your insurance money suggests she might be thinking about more than just divorce. What do you mean? I mean, be careful. People who plan this elaborately don't usually stop at financial theft. The thought sent a chill down my spine. So what do I do? First, you document everything. Every financial transaction, every lie, every piece of evidence. Second, you protect your assets immediately. Third, you decide how you want to handle this. I want to destroy her, I said quietly. Malik raised an eyebrow. Legally destroy her, I hope. Of course, but I want her to lose everything, the way she planned for me to lose everything. That can be arranged. But Derek, you need to be smart about this. No confrontations until we have everything we need. Can you do that? Can you pretend everything's normal while we build a case? I thought about going home to Paige, pretending to care about wedding planning while knowing she was planning my destruction. I don't know. You have to, because if you tip her off now, she'll disappear with whatever she's already taken, and you'll never get justice. Justice. The word tasted better than revenge, more civilized, but the end result would be the same. How long? I asked. Give me 2 weeks, maybe 3. We'll get financial records, document the fraud, maybe even catch them in the act. Then we'll decide how to proceed. I nodded, finishing my whiskey. 2 weeks of pretending to love the woman who's been planning to destroy me. Think of it as an investment in her destruction. When I got home that night, Paige was cooking dinner, humming some pop song while she stirred pasta sauce. She looked up when I walked in, her face lighting up with what I now knew was a completely fake smile. There's my hard-working man, she said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss me. I kissed her back, tasting lies and betrayal. Smells good. Your favorite. Thought you might need some comfort food with all the wedding stress. Wedding stress. If only she knew. How was your day? I asked, settling at the counter to watch her cook. Oh, boring blogger stuff. Had a meeting with a potential sponsor, worked on some content, nothing exciting. She paused, stirring the sauce. Actually, I might need to travel next week. There's a conference in Dallas that could be really good for my brand. Dallas, where Evan lived. That sounds great, I said. How long will you be gone? Just a couple days, Thursday and Friday. I'll be back Saturday morning. Perfect. That would give me time to search the house, document whatever else she was hiding. I'll miss you, I lied. I'll miss you too, she lied back. We were quite the pair. Dinner was torture. Paige chattered about wedding details, showing me photos of centerpieces and discussing the final head count. Every word was a reminder of the elaborate deception she'd constructed. I was thinking, she said, twirling pasta around her fork, maybe we should increase the insurance policies before the wedding. As a married couple, we'll have more to protect. There it was. Not even subtle. That's smart thinking, I said. How much were you thinking? Well, you're already at $500K, but maybe we should bump it to $1 million, and I should probably get a policy too, maybe $300K. $1 million. My passing would make her a very wealthy woman. I'll call my agent tomorrow, I said. Her smile was radiant. You're so responsible. It's one of the things I love most about you. That night, lying in bed next to her, I stared at the ceiling and planned her downfall. She was curled against my side, her breathing soft and even, probably dreaming about her future with Evan and my money. 2 weeks. I could do this for 2 weeks. But as I listened to her sleep, one thought kept running through my mind. Paige Hollister had picked the wrong man to betray. She thought she was dealing with a naive, trusting engineer who would roll over and die on command. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. Every morning, I woke up next to a woman who was planning my destruction. Every evening, I came home to her fake smiles and loving touches. Every night, I lay awake documenting her betrayal. Malik wasn't kidding about being thorough. He had me tracking everything: bank statements, credit card records, her travel expenses, her mysterious business meetings. What we found was worse than I'd imagined. Paige had been systematically draining our joint accounts for months. Small amounts at first, $200 here, $500 there, but escalating as the wedding approached. She'd opened credit cards in my name, taken cash advances, and even forged my signature on a loan application. She's stolen almost $30,000, Malik said during one of our evening meetings. And that's just what we can document. Catie had been conducting her own investigation. Turns out Evan Rusk wasn't just a photographer, he was a con artist with a history of targeting women in relationships. Paige wasn't his first mark, just his most successful one. He's done this before, Catie explained, showing me a file she'd compiled. 3 times in the past 5 years, finds women in committed relationships, seduces them, convinces them to steal from their partners, then disappears when things get too hot. So Paige isn't the mastermind? Oh, she's plenty guilty. But Evan's the professional. He probably picked her specifically because she was engaged to someone with money. The thought made me freeze. I wasn't just a victim of my fiancé's betrayal. I was a carefully selected target in an elaborate con game. Meanwhile, I had to maintain the facade at home. Paige's behavior became even more suspicious once I knew what to look for. She was constantly on her phone, taking calls in other rooms, making excuses to leave the house. Her business trip to Dallas turned into a long weekend of passion with Evan, though she called me every night to maintain the illusion. "Missing you so much," she'd coo into the phone while probably lying naked in his bed. "Missing you too," I'd reply while photographing the financial documents she'd hidden in her closet. The hardest part was the wedding planning. Paige threw herself into it with renewed enthusiasm, probably because she knew it was all my money she was spending. The final bill was approaching $85,000, money I'd worked overtime for months to save. "I want everything to be perfect," she said, reviewing the florist's final proposal. "This is our special day." Our special day. The day she planned to legally bind herself to me before destroying me completely. "It's going to be beautiful," I agreed, signing another check. But the most disturbing discovery came during her Dallas trip. While she was gone, I installed security cameras throughout the house, Catie's suggestion. When Paige returned, she brought Evan with her. I was at work when they arrived, but the cameras caught everything. They didn't just have a fair in my bed. They mocked me, laughed about how stupid I was, how easy it had been to fool me, how much they were going to enjoy spending my money. "He actually thinks I love him," Paige giggled as Evan poured champagne, my expensive champagne, into glasses. "Poor bastard," Evan replied. "Should we feel guilty?" "Why? He's choosing to be stupid. That's not our fault." They toasted to their success, had sex on my kitchen counter, and spent the afternoon planning their escape. After the wedding, they'd wait exactly 6 months, long enough to establish the marriage, not long enough for me to get suspicious about a sudden passing. Then there would be an accident. "Car crash is cleanest," Evan suggested, or maybe a break-in gone wrong. "I like the break-in idea," Paige agreed. More sympathy for the grieving widow." I watched this conversation from my office, my hands shaking with rage. They weren't just planning to rob me, they were planning to murder me. That night, when Paige came home with shopping bags full of lingerie she claimed was for our honeymoon, I almost broke. She modeled the outfits for me, asking which ones I liked best, all while knowing she'd worn them for another man hours earlier. "You're so lucky to have me," she said, striking a pose in a red negligee. "The luckiest man alive," I replied. If only she knew how true that was about to become. By the end of the second week, we had everything we needed. Financial records proving theft, video evidence of adultery, recorded conversations discussing fraud and murder. Malik had prepared a case that would not only send Paige to prison, but destroy her completely. "We could go to the police right now," he said. "She's committed multiple felonies." "Not yet," I said. "I want her to think she's won first." "Derek, that's dangerous." if they're really planning to eliminate you, they won't get the chance. But I want her to experience the same thing she put me through. I want her to think her dreams are coming true right before I destroy them." Catie looked concerned. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking we let the wedding happen. Let her think she's pulled off the perfect con. Then we destroy her in the most public, humiliating way possible." "That's risky," Malik warned. "So is stealing from me. So is planning my murder. I think I can handle a little risk." The truth was, I wanted more than justice. I wanted revenge. I wanted Paige to feel the same devastation she'd planned for me. I wanted her to lose everything, her freedom, her reputation, her future, the way she'd planned to take mine. "There's something else," Catie said quietly. "I've been monitoring their communications. They're not planning to wait 6 months after the wedding." "What do you mean?" "They've moved up the timeline. They're planning the accident for the honeymoon." The honeymoon, a romantic week in Costa Rica, just the two of us. The perfect place for a tragic accident that would leave Paige a wealthy young widow. "Then we move up our timeline too," I said. "We end this at the wedding." "How?" Malik asked. I smiled for the first time in weeks. It wasn't a nice smile. "Leave that to me." That night, Paige was particularly affectionate, probably because she thought she only had to pretend for a few more days. She curled up against me in bed, her head on my chest, her fingers tracing circles on my skin. "I love you so much," she whispered. "I can't wait to be your wife." "I can't wait either," I said, meaning every word. She had no idea that in 3 days, at our beautiful, expensive wedding, in front of all our friends and family, I was going to destroy her world just as thoroughly as she'd planned to destroy mine. The only difference was, I was going to let her live to experience it. The morning of my wedding dawned clear and bright, Houston's October weather finally cooperating. I stood in the mirror of the country club's groom's suite, adjusting my tie and thinking about the fact that in a few hours I would either be married to a woman who planned to murder me, or I would be free. I was betting on free. "You clean up nice," Malik said, straightening his own tie. As my best man, he was trying to act normal, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. "Ready for this?" "More than ready." Catie knocked on the door. She was serving as the wedding photographer. We'd hired her company to replace the original photographer after he'd mysteriously become unavailable. Funny how that worked out. "The bride's getting ready," she reported. "Looks beautiful, also looks nervous." She should be. The plan was simple. Let the ceremony proceed normally until the moment when the officiant asked if anyone had objections to the marriage. That's when I would stand up and object to my own wedding. But first, I had a few preparations to make. The wedding venue was perfect, the Houston Country Club's main ballroom, decorated with white roses and crystal chandeliers. 200 guests, including both our families, all our friends, and several prominent members of Houston society. Paige had insisted on inviting everyone she could think of, probably to maximize the social impact of her eventual widowhood. She had no idea she was about to become famous for entirely different reasons. At 4 p.m., I took my place at the altar. The string quartet began playing, and the bridesmaids started their procession down the aisle. Paige had chosen 6 bridesmaids, all dressed in blush pink, all smiling and weeping with joy for their friend's happiness. Then the music changed to the wedding march, and Paige appeared at the back of the aisle on her father's arm. I had to admit, she looked stunning. Her dress was a custom creation that had cost more than my truck, all flowing silk and intricate beadwork. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless, her smile radiant. She looked like every man's dream bride. Too bad she was every man's nightmare wife. She walked toward me with tears of joy in her eyes, probably tears of greed, knowing what I knew, and I smiled back at her. Let her think everything was going according to plan. Her father, Randall Hollister, placed her hand in mine with a solemn expression. "Take care of her, son." "I will," I promised, and I meant it. I was going to take very good care of her future. The ceremony began. Reverend Matthews, a family friend who'd known me since childhood, smiled at the gathered crowd. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Derek Calloway and Paige Hollister in holy matrimony." I glanced at Paige. She was glowing, probably thinking about how close she was to pulling off the perfect crime. Marriage is not to be entered into lightly, but reverently, passionately, and in the knowledge that love is the foundation of all lasting relationships. Love. Right. The Reverend continued with the traditional opening, talking about the sanctity of marriage, the importance of commitment, the beauty of 2 lives joining as one. I let the words wash over me while I watched Paige's face. She was the picture of bridal bliss. If there is anyone present who knows of any lawful impediment why these 2 should not be joined in marriage, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. This was it. My moment. But instead of speaking, I waited. Let the silence stretch. Let Paige start to relax, thinking we'd passed the dangerous moment. Very well, Reverend Matthews continued. Derek, do you take Paige to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse? I do, I said clearly. Paige's smile widened. She squeezed my hands. Paige, do you take Derek to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse? I do, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Fake emotion, but the crowd didn't know that. The rings, please. Malik stepped forward with the ring box. As he handed it to me, he gave me a questioning look. I nodded slightly. Derek, place this ring on Paige's finger and repeat after me. With this ring, I thee wed. I slipped the diamond band onto her finger. With this ring, I thee wed. She was practically vibrating with excitement now, so close to victory. Paige, place this ring on Derek's finger and repeat after me. With this ring, I thee wed. She took my ring, a simple platinum band, and slid it onto my finger with shaking hands. With this ring, I thee wed. By the power vested in me by the state of Texas, I now pronounce you. Wait, I said loudly. The Reverend stopped mid-sentence. The entire congregation went silent. Paige looked at me with confusion and growing alarm. Derek? She whispered. What's wrong? I turned to face our guests, still holding her hands. I'm sorry, everyone, but I can't do this. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Paige's grip on my hands tightened painfully. Derek, what are you doing? She hissed. I'm stopping a fraud, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the silent ballroom. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the deception, but this wedding cannot continue. I dropped Paige's hands and stepped back. She stared at me in shock, her face pale beneath her makeup. You see, I continued, addressing the crowd, 3 weeks ago, I discovered that my beautiful bride-to-be has been systematically stealing from me for months. She's also been having an affair with another man, and they've been planning to murder me after our honeymoon. The gasps turned into shouts of shock and disbelief. Paige's mother screamed. Her father started to stand up, his face red with anger. Derek, stop this, Paige said, tears streaming down her face. You're having a breakdown. This isn't what? I interrupted. This isn't the truth? Should I tell them about Evan Rusk? Should I tell them about the $30,000 you've stolen? Should I tell them about your plan to stage my passing in Costa Rica? You're insane, she whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. I gestured to Catie, who was positioned near the back of the room with her camera equipment and a laptop connected to the venue's projection system. Catie, would you mind sharing some of the evidence with our guests? The lights dimmed, and the projection screen behind the altar lit up with screenshots of text messages. Paige's messages to Evan, clearly visible to everyone in the room. Derek's so gullible. He actually thinks I love him. After the wedding, I'll upgrade. He's so pathetic. The wedding's costing him almost $80K. Might as well go out with a bang. The room erupted. People were shouting, standing up, pointing at the screen. Paige's family looked mortified. My family looked furious. Stop this, Paige screamed, lunging toward the laptop. Stop this right now. But Catie had more. Video footage of Paige and Evan in my house, audio recordings of their conversations about my planned accident, bank records showing the systematic theft. Ladies and gentlemen, I said over the chaos, I present to you the real Paige Hollister, con artist, thief, and would-be murderer. Paige collapsed to her knees in her expensive wedding dress, sobbing hysterically. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage and frustration at being caught. You bastard, she screamed at me. You bastard, you ruined everything. I ruined everything? I laughed. Paige, you ruined everything the moment you decided to steal from me. I just returned the favor. Her father was on his feet now, his face purple with rage. This is slander. We'll sue you for everything you have. With what evidence? Malik stepped forward, his lawyer voice cutting through the noise. Everything Derek has shared is documented fact. Your daughter is a criminal, Mr. Hollister. I'd be more worried about her legal defense than a lawsuit. As if on cue, the ballroom doors opened and Houston police officers entered. I'd called them an hour before the ceremony, giving them time to review the evidence and obtain arrest warrants. Paige Hollister? The lead detective approached the altar. Yes, she whispered. You're under arrest for theft, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. As they read her rights and handcuffed her, still in her wedding dress, I felt a satisfaction deeper than anything I'd ever experienced. The woman who'd planned to destroy me was being destroyed in the most public, humiliating way possible. "This isn't over," she snarled at me as they led her away. "I'll make you pay for this." "You already tried," I replied. "How'd that work out for you?" The ballroom was chaos. Half the guests were trying to leave, others were demanding explanations, and Paige's family was having various forms of breakdown. Her mother was sobbing into her husband's shoulder while her brother was screaming at me about ruining his sister's life. I stood at the altar in my tuxedo, watching the woman I'd once loved being arrested in her wedding dress, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "Derek," Reverend Matthews said quietly, "I've been officiating weddings for 30 years, and I've never seen anything like this." "Hopefully you'll never see anything like it again," I replied. As the police escorted Paige out of the ballroom, she turned back one last time. Her makeup was ruined, her hair was falling down, and her perfect wedding dress was wrinkled and stained with tears. "I loved you," she screamed. "I really loved you." I looked at her for a long moment, this woman who'd shared my bed while planning my passing, who'd stolen my money while pretending to build our future, who'd kissed me goodnight while counting the days until my murder. "No," I said quietly. "You didn't." And then she was gone, led away in handcuffs while 200 wedding guests watched in stunned silence. The next few hours were a blur of police statements, family conversations, and media attention. Apparently, a bride being arrested at her own wedding was newsworthy. Who knew? I spent most of the evening in the country club's manager's office, giving my statement to Detective Rodriguez, while Malik handled the legal details. The evidence was overwhelming. Paige would be facing multiple felony charges, and Evan Rusk had been arrested in Dallas on conspiracy charges. "Mr. Calloway," Detective Rodriguez said as we wrapped up, "I have to ask, why didn't you come to us sooner? When you discovered the theft and the murder plot, why wait until the wedding?" I considered the question. Because I wanted her to experience the same thing she put me through, the betrayal, the humiliation, the complete destruction of everything she thought she could count on. That was risky. If they'd moved up their timeline. They did. Catie was monitoring their communications, but I had protection. I gestured toward my sister, who was packing up her camera equipment. "Former cop, remember? She's been my shadow for the past week." The detective nodded approvingly. "Smart and satisfying, I imagine." "Very." By the time I left the country club, it was nearly midnight. Most of the guests had gone home, though a few family members lingered to make sure I was okay. My parents were proud of me for handling the situation with such precision, though my mother was upset that she'd wasted money on a new dress. "I never liked her anyway," she said, hugging me goodbye. "Too perfect. Real people have flaws." My father clapped me on the shoulder. "You handled this like a man, son. Took care of business." Catie drove me home, to my house, not the apartment I'd shared with Paige. I'd moved my stuff out during her Dallas trip, though she'd been too distracted to notice. "So," Catie said as we pulled into my driveway, "how do you feel?" "Empty," I admitted. "Satisfied, but empty." "That's normal. You've been running on adrenaline and anger for weeks. Now that it's over, you're going to crash." She was right. As soon as I walked into my house, my quiet, peaceful, Paige-free house, the exhaustion hit me like a truck. I poured myself a drink and sat on my couch, still wearing my tuxedo, and tried to process what had happened. This morning, I'd woken up expecting to get married. Tonight, I was going to bed a single man whose ex-fiancée was in jail. My phone had been buzzing constantly with calls and texts. Friends, family, reporters, even some of Paige's friends who wanted to know if the accusations were true. I'd turned it off hours ago. The house felt different now. Peaceful. For months, it had been contaminated by Paige's presence, by the lies and deception she'd brought into my life. Now it was just mine again. I thought about the wedding that should have been happening. By now, Paige and I should have been at the reception, dancing to our first song as husband and wife, cutting the cake, celebrating with our loved ones. Instead, she was in a jail cell, and I was alone in my living room. It was exactly what she deserved, but it still felt strange. The next morning brought a new reality. The story had made the local news. Bride arrested at wedding for theft and murder plot, and my phone was ringing constantly with interview requests. I ignored them all. Malik came by around noon with updates on the legal situation. "Paige has been denied bail," he reported. The judge considered her a flight risk, especially given the evidence of the planned murder. Her family's hired a lawyer, but honestly, Derek, she's looking at serious prison time. Good. Evan's been arrested in Dallas. Turns out he's got warrants in 3 other states for similar cons. This might be the thing that finally puts him away for good. Even better. "There's one more thing," Malik said carefully. Paige wants to see you." I laughed. "Absolutely not." "I figured you'd say that, but I had to ask. She's claiming she has something important to tell you." "She can tell it to her lawyer." Over the next few days, the story continued to make waves. The local media loved it. A dramatic wedding day revelation, a beautiful bride in handcuffs, a groom who'd outsmarted a murder plot. I became something of a local celebrity, though not one I'd ever wanted to be. The financial investigation revealed the full extent of Paige's theft. She'd stolen nearly $40,000 over the course of our relationship, using a combination of forged checks, unauthorized credit cards, and simple cash theft. The money had gone toward her business expenses, which turned out to be gifts for Evan, trips to see him, and preparations for their planned escape. She was thorough, the financial investigator told me. If you hadn't caught her, she would have cleaned out your accounts completely within 6 months of the marriage. The murder plot was equally detailed. They'd researched Costa Rica's laws, identified remote locations where an accident could occur, and even practiced their story about what had happened to poor Derek, who'd fallen off a cliff during a romantic hike. They would have gotten away with it, Detective Rodriguez admitted. If you hadn't discovered the affair when you did, you'd probably be gone within a year. It was a sobering thought. 2 weeks after the wedding that wasn't, I was finally starting to feel normal again. The media attention had faded, the police investigation was complete, and I was back to my regular routine at work. My colleagues treated me like a hero, the man who'd outsmarted a black widow and lived to tell about it. I was working late one evening when Tom Patterson knocked on my office door. "Derek, there's someone here to see you." I looked up to find a woman I didn't recognize standing in the doorway. She was maybe 30, with dark hair and kind eyes, wearing a simple dress and a nervous expression. "Mr. Calloway, my name is Jennifer Walsh. I was wondering if I could talk to you for a few minutes." "About what?" "About Evan Rusk, and what he did to my sister." I gestured for her to sit down. "Your sister?" "Rebecca Walsh. She was Evan's victim 3 years ago in Phoenix. She was engaged to a wonderful man named Michael, and Evan destroyed their relationship the same way he tried to destroy yours." I leaned back in my chair. "What happened to her?" Jennifer's expression darkened. She couldn't handle the shame and the betrayal. She eliminated herself 6 months after Michael left her. The words hit me like a physical blow. "I'm sorry." "I've been tracking Evan ever since, trying to build a case against him. When I saw the news about your wedding, I knew I had to come thank you." "Thank me?" "For stopping him, for making sure he can't do this to anyone else." She wiped her eyes. Rebecca would have loved seeing him in handcuffs. We talked for another hour. Jennifer had files on 3 other women Evan had targeted, all of whom had suffered devastating consequences. One had lost her home, another had been hospitalized for a breakdown, and Rebecca had lost her life. "He's a predator," Jennifer said. "He finds women in happy relationships and destroys them for sport. The money is just a bonus." "What about Paige?" "She was different. Most of his victims are innocent. They get seduced and manipulated into betraying their partners. But Paige was an active participant. She enjoyed it." That night, I lay in bed thinking about Rebecca Walsh, a woman I'd never met who'd gone because of the man who'd tried to destroy my life. In a strange way, her passing had saved mine. If Jennifer hadn't been tracking Evan, if she hadn't provided additional evidence to the police, he might have slipped away to find another victim. The trial was scheduled for 6 months later. Both Paige and Evan would be facing multiple felony charges, and the prosecutor was confident about convictions. I would have to testify, relive the whole nightmare in court, but it would be worth it to see them both put away. In the meantime, I had a life to rebuild, a life without lies, without betrayal, without the constant fear that the person I loved most was planning my destruction. It was going to be a good life. 6 months later, I sat in a Houston courtroom watching Paige Hollister, now wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of a wedding dress, listen to the judge read her sentence. On the charges of theft in the first degree, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder, I sentence you to 15 years in state prison with the possibility of parole after 10 years. Paige's face crumpled. Her mother sobbed in the gallery. Her father sat stone-faced, probably calculating the cost of appeals. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The trial had been a media circus. Every sordid detail of Paige's deception had been laid bare for public consumption. The text messages, the financial records, the video evidence of her affair, all of it presented to a jury that had taken less than 2 hours to find her guilty on all counts. Evan Rusk had been tried separately in Dallas and received 20 years, thanks partly to Jennifer Walsh's evidence about his other victims. He'd tried to claim that Paige had been the mastermind, that she'd seduced him into the scheme. The jury hadn't bought it. "Mr. Calloway," the prosecutor Sarah Chen said as we left the courthouse, "I hope this gives you some closure." "It does," I replied. And it was true. Watching Paige led away in shackles, knowing she'd spend the next decade behind bars, had finally put the nightmare to rest. The media was waiting outside, but I'd learned to ignore them. My statement was simple. Justice had been served, I was moving on with my life, and I had no further comment. That evening, I had dinner with Malik and Catie at our favorite restaurant. A celebration of sorts, though it felt more like the end of a long, exhausting chapter than a victory party. "So what now?" Catie asked. "You're officially a free man." "Now I get back to living," I said. "Maybe try dating again in a year or two. Find someone who actually loves me instead of my bank account." "That shouldn't be too hard," Malik said. "You're quite the catch. Successful engineer, homeowner, and you've already proven you can handle a psychopathic girlfriend." "That's definitely going on my dating profile." We laughed, but there was truth in it. The experience with Paige had changed me, made me more cautious, but also more confident. I'd survived the worst kind of betrayal and come out stronger. Over the following months, life gradually returned to normal. The media attention faded, the curious stares stopped, and people began treating me like Derek the engineer instead of Derek the guy whose fiancée tried to murder him. I threw myself into work, taking on bigger projects and earning a promotion to senior engineer. I bought a new house. The old one had too many memories and started dating again, though cautiously. The first few relationships didn't work out. It turned out that being famous for outsmarting a murderous fiancé was either incredibly attractive or incredibly intimidating to women, with no middle ground. But eventually, I met someone who saw past the headlines to the person underneath. Her name was Hannah Morrison, and she was a pediatric nurse at Texas Children's Hospital. We met at a coffee shop near my office, where she was studying for her master's degree, and I was grabbing lunch between meetings. "Excuse me," she said as I was leaving. "Aren't you the guy from that wedding thing?" I braced myself for another round of questions about Paige and the trial. "Yeah, that's me." "I just wanted to say I'm sorry you went through that. It must have been awful." Her sympathy was genuine, without the morbid curiosity I'd grown used to. "Thank you, it was. For what it's worth, I think you handled it perfectly. A lot of people would have just confronted her privately and let her get away with it." "A lot of people wouldn't have been planning my murder," she smiled. "True. Can I buy you a coffee? I promise not to ask about the psycho ex-fiancé." That coffee turned into dinner, which turned into a relationship that felt healthy and normal in a way I'd forgotten was possible. Hannah was kind, honest, and refreshingly drama-free. She had no hidden agendas, no secret boyfriends, and no interest in my financial situation beyond making sure I could afford my half of dinner. "You know what I like about you?" she said one evening as we walked along Buffalo Bayou. "My charming personality and devastating good looks? Your honesty. After what you went through, a lot of guys would have trust issues, would be suspicious and paranoid. But you're not. You're just honest about who you are and what you want." Maybe I'm just a good actor. Maybe, but I don't think so. A year after Paige's sentencing, I received a letter from her in prison. The return address made my stomach clench. Even after all this time, seeing her name could still affect me. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won out. "Derek, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to write this. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did, and I want you to know that I'm sorry. I know that doesn't mean much coming from me, and I know it doesn't undo the damage I caused. But I want you to understand that I never meant for things to go as far as they did. Evan was very persuasive. He convinced me that you didn't really love me, that you were just using me, that I deserved better. I know that doesn't excuse what I did, but I want you to know that I wasn't always the person who hurt you. I hope you've found happiness with someone who deserves you. You're a good man, Derek, and you deserve better than what I gave you. I'm getting help here, therapy and counseling, trying to understand why I made the choices I did. I'll probably never get out of here, but I want to be a better person anyway. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry." Paige, I read the letter twice, then put it in my desk drawer. It might have been genuine remorse, or it might have been another manipulation. With Paige, I'd learned it was impossible to tell the difference.